Hello everyone, today we're going to take a look at NeuroVoider, a fairly interesting little twin-stick shooter RPG. It's quite enjoyable, and I wanted to take a look at this because I have been keeping my eye on it for a little while as it's been making its way through the early access system, and I'm happy to say that it has made its way out for a little while and has been receiving very regular updates. Even after that, from the devs, the guys over at Flying Oak Games, and also it's sort of indie published, you could say, by Plug-in Digital. And, well, I really just wanted to sort of show it off because it's actually pretty fun. And although I wouldn't say that it does any one particular thing massively well, as in it's not like a super innovative twin-stick shooter, it is familiar to anyone that has played a twin-stick or like a sort of roguelite RPG top-down shooter style. It does pretty much everything right. So it is distinctly an above average shooter that is very enjoyable and has made its way through early access very successfully. And I like to cover games that have done that to show that the system can be used for good by developers that are dedicated and know what they're doing and have come to produce an enjoyable product. So here we go. So to begin, you of course start by selecting your mode, which is cool actually that it gives you a chance to play the game without some of the more roguelike-y elements, which is cool, but I'm just going to go for the sort of base experience here, rogue mode. You can kind of guess what that entails. And one of the main sort of draws of the game is that it includes up to 4-player co-op, which is pretty neat, actually. A lot of these games do not have co-op, and that is one of the points that a lot of people ask for very commonly in games in this genre. But in this case, this game out of the box has up to 4-player co-op, so enjoy that one. Here we go. You begin by selecting a class, and there are 3 separate classes. And the main difference is, of course, your starting weapons, but those will be replaced very quickly. So the main difference is actually the sort of ability that they begin with. And there are sort of 2 abilities. You'll be able to select one from quite a selection, and then there is this, which is something that is determined by the class and you cannot replace. Although, interestingly enough, you can actually change the class of the sort of brain-powered mech thing, which is pretty cool that you actually play as, if you have every part from a different class. So, for instance, if I start as a dash class, but I'm going to choose a fortress, then I have to have every part later on by looting enemies for a fortress, and I can actually change it if I want to, which is neat. So you're not actually stuck as one of them. But in this case, I'm actually going to use dash because it's kind of fun. It is, of course, the most fast and fragile, but it has a dash, obviously, so we're going to do that. And here is the skill. There are 23 of them that you can actually choose from, which is pretty huge. And each of them has a different way of recharging and a different rate of recharging. So this is sort of beginning to select your build, basically. All looted weapons are melee, and that's interesting. There are ranged and melee weapons, and that is one of the other main draws of the game, is the loot is pretty cool. There are a lot of weapons in this game. Like, a lot. And you can do a lot of things with them, and the actual build that you can create can be very different every time, every way through, which is cool. More scrap, let's see. That's kind of neat. Avoid death once per level, that could be useful. Repair packs give more HP. Classy loot. All looted items are of your current class. Actually, that could be really good. I'm gonna get that, because I'm not worried about changing class for this video. So, here's how it works. These are all the levels you'll go through, and this is the farthest I've ever made it. That's what that skull mark means. That means that currently, the last sort of mech that I've played with all of the loot that I had at the time I died is waiting right there for me, and that was the best I've ever done on that particular run. These big squares are bosses, as you may guess, and the boss fights in this game are very impressive. And all of these are, well, level selections. You will be able to select between 3 different levels each time. And as you can see, it's sort of a risk-reward sort of thing, because each level has different statistics and size, the number of possible elites you can find, i.e. particularly tough enemies, and the amount of average loot you'll find. So being the first level, this one seems really, really good because it'll get me more loot to begin with, hopefully. So we're going to start here. And here we go. Another thing you may notice from the beginning is that the art style is actually pretty cool. It is a pixel art style with a lot of work put into it, and it looks quite good. It is really quite something because it's got a, I want to say, I don't know, I want to say Sega Genesis for some reason. I know a lot of people like to associate 16-bit with Super Nintendo, which is, I mean, for good reason, because the SNES had, oh, that's an elite, had an absolute crap load of very, very good looking games on it. The 16-bit art style can be pretty timeless, and as far as pixel art goes, it can actually look pretty good even to this day. I mean, you go back to things like Chrono Trigger, for instance, still looks good, and you know, Final Fantasy VI still looks good, things like that. Ooh, a mini nuke. And but for some reason, I want to say, I think it's because of the strange kind of color depth that this game has. It's particularly dark in the actual color that it has, and it's also very it's very, I suppose, saturated. The colors they're not necessarily always vibrant because, like I said, it's quite dark, but they're very saturated in color. It reminds me of the Sonic games, some of the darker Sonic levels like Casino Nights and things like that. And that's why this game has a kind of Sega Genesis art style to me. And I really like that art style. I appreciate it a lot. It looks very, very good. And the art style is very prevalent throughout, you know, I mean, the entire game. Everything looks like this. All the loot, all the different enemies, the boss fights and everything. The art style is, I blew myself up, is particularly great looking, and it is carried throughout everything in the game. Even every little projectile from every type of weapon carries a nice little look to it, which is cool. I like, if you're gonna do a pixel art style, you need to make sure you're good at it, and well, these guys have nailed it down to a very nice aesthetic that blends well throughout the entire game, and is, I think most importantly for a modern pixel art style, if you're going to do that, it's uniform, and it actually looks good throughout. So, as you can see, you have, oh, don't blow yourself up, you have 2 weapons to begin with, and you can even have melee weapons, and you have, if I just use this here, there, you have an energy bar, and if you use your weapons too much, depending on how much energy you have, you can actually run out, and you will be forced to wait for it to recharge before you can shoot again, which can get yourself killed pretty easily. And you may also notice that I'm picking up all kinds of loot. But here's the thing, you may notice also that I'm not equipping any of it, and that is, I think, one of the good points of this game. A lot of people have complaints for this genre that you get so much loot that it constantly interrupts the flow of the game. That the gameplay is interrupted consistently by how much you're constantly going into your inventory, re-equipping stuff, changing out all your equipment, comparing your gear, going back out, killing a few more enemies, getting more loot, and doing it all over again, and that's constantly slowing the pace of the game. This game fixes that problem by having you not actually be able to physically do that. You don't have an inventory that you can access during the missions themselves. You have to actually complete a level like this to go to your inventory. So you can't break the flow of the game, per se. You have to actually wait until you're done with a level to look at your loot and all your characters, stuff like that. The only things you can do in a level are play the level, or pause, I guess, which I think is a neat way to solve the problem. So that's, I think, one of the things that this game does differently to other games in the genre that is noteworthy, is that it tries to fix the commonly complained about pacing issues by changing the pace, making sure in level the only thing you can really do is play the level. If you want to mess with your mech, I suppose, and equip stuff, you gotta beat the level first. So when you're done with the level, you get one free repair every time, and one repair is basically one of these segments. And then after that, you've got to pay to repair another. Which I'm actually going to do just because. And you also have your equipment. So, different types of equipment. As you can see, every one of them has a specific kind of use. Vision sensors increase your skill efficiency. Cores are your main armor and energy source, and etc., etc. So, if I just go here, you can see all the things that I picked up in that level, and yes, there are colors as well. Loot rarities. So this would be the best one I have. Basically, they are organized. And in this case, the Visor of Strategic Shocking, it is pretty cool. I think I'm going to get that. It gives me more energy by a little bit, and helps a bit. Now, normally, depending on the skill you have equipped, they can also give you some things, some extra boosts to it. However, in this case, because it's a different kind of passive skill, I'm not entirely sure what it will do. And that means that pretty much every time you play through the game, your build is going to be a bit different, which is neat. Because, of course, you can choose from a variety of different passive and active skills, which will alter what kind of equipment you may want to actually equip. Not to mention, there are 3 different classes of robot that will also alter a different skill and alter what build you may want to make. And there are 2 weapon slots, which can have all kinds of different, statistics. So now I'm going to scrap everything else, because that's the only thing I want to keep. And with this scrap, one of the things you can do is boost equipment. So if you boost equipment, it will improve its statistics in various ways. It costs scrap, and there are 5 levels of boost for any individual piece of gear. And each level of boost will up different areas of its statistics in different amounts, and it'll tell you what it'll do each time. And obviously I don't have much right now, so I'm not going to do that. And in this case, I've got a couple of cores. This one will be the best one. It does decrease my energy regen by a little bit, but it gives me a lot more energy regen and quite a bit more HP as well. So I'm going to go ahead and equip that. And I'm going to go ahead and scrap the other cores to get myself more stuff. And I got a couple of other things as well. Let's see. 16 HP, 18, 19, 18. So this one right now would be the best one, just because none of the others have any sort of other particular stats, really. I've got only white basic items, so we'll just do that. And then scrap everything else. And now the really interesting bits, the weapons. So there are lots of them. Autoguns, missile launchers, that's a mini nuke, which seems hilarious. Double burner, twin plasma, cross missile, double cross missile, pulse beam. There's a huge variety of weapons. That's probably my favorite part of this game, actually, because the combat is really good, combined with how the variety of mech builds goes, is pretty interesting. So, well, a mini nuke rocket seems pretty amazing, and I don't really know how I could possibly pass that up, so yes, equip. Although it does take 128 energy per shot. So I'm going to need a rapid fire, less energy sucking weapon in my other slot to actually compensate. That's a very powerful melee weapon that I might use in my other slot, but that would make it to where I don't really have a rapid fire ranged option. But I think it would be worth it because it is particularly potent. So yeah, I think I'll do that, and then I will just scrap everything else, and that will leave me with the 2 weapons I have equipped, and a pretty good amount of scrap. So what I could do is actually boost this a little bit to up the damage, to make it a bit more reliable for the amount of energy I spend on each swing, so that hopefully I don't have to swing it too many times, and I can kill things quickly before they can hurt me too much. And now, as you can see, every individual piece I have equipped does actually change the appearance of the mech, which is very, very cool. Or the machine thingy. And now we are going on to the next level. Forgot you have to hold it. Boop. And there we go. That is your gameplay loop, and that's how it works. Occasionally, you can also get these level skip tokens, and of course, every 5th level is a boss. And the boss the boss fights themselves are extremely cool. They take up much more than the entire screen. They're huge. They're often multi-phase with lots of weak points you have to search out and lots of fairly complex bullet patterns and things like that. They're very interesting, and each one is wow, and each one is quite different. And just like a lot of other games in this genre, you're not going to necessarily come across the same boss each time you get to that oh my goodness. Each time you get to that particular like level. So the first boss you may face isn't necessarily going to be the same first boss every time, which you would expect from a sort of roguelite shooter. So yeah, this is NeuroVoider. It is, I mean, it's an easy concept. I really need some more energy, actually. This is not necessarily the best series of weapons to equip for my current level of energy. I gotta be very careful with how many times I swing, but it swings twice each time, so uh-oh. But what you've got here is an extremely competent game. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily do any one thing incredibly well. Ooh, a boom hammer. From Bloodborne. But what it does do is almost everything good, or at least almost great. Ow, that was stupid. It is above average, and although it may sound like I'm insulting it almost, I'm most definitely not. The term average, when it comes to describing games, has almost become an insult for some reason. Like, every game you play must be absolutely incredible to be worthy of playing, and that's simply not the case. It's totally okay to play a game that is, you know, not absolutely 10 out of 10 incredible at all times, but is plenty good enough. And this is one of those games. It is good enough. It's nothing, like, super spectacular in terms of what it does, but everything it does so well that there's no sticking out weakness to it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There's no super weakness that is, well, it does most things good, but there's this one huge problem with it. It really doesn't have a glaring problem. It just also doesn't have a glaring advantage to a lot of other games in the genre. It is a particularly interesting game with its very neat aesthetic and a very good soundtrack, by the way. This sort of dark synth stuff going on is pretty great. Ooh. Manic Phaser? I have no idea what that even does. Disc Packer, Long Flamethrower. I mean, I will say, Triphaser, the thing it probably does best has got to be its actual weapon selection. That is definitely its high point. And of course, the fact that it has 4-player co-op is going to make this game an absolute romp for a lot of people. But I don't think I can handle it. It does have a lot more splash, though. But man, the energy cost on that thing. I don't know if I can handle using that or not. You know what? Screw it. We're doing it. We're doing it live. So what I can do, actually, hang on, is get a crap ton of scrap from doing that, and then boost this to get a bunch more energy. Yeah, let's do that. Now, I think the main point of enjoyment from the game are going to come from making your own build every time, seeing what kind of ridiculous neuro robot you can come up with each time, and just romping your way through the levels, possibly with your friends, and seeing what you can do. But overall, it's a game that, really, for the price, is hard to say no to. It's $14 on Steam right now, and it is a game that has very successfully, holy crap, made its way through the early access system. It used its time in the early access program, I suppose you could say, very, very well. And it's definitely a success story of the EA system, because it, you know, the devs took a lot of feedback, they improved a lot of things, they added a lot of things, and overall they did a great deal of good with the game. And a lot of it is because of the changes made in the system. And if it weren't for probably its fairly extended but reasonable early access time frame, it would probably still need a lot of work, but now is the perfect time to get into NeuroVoider, because all of that work has been done for you, and what you're left with is a very reasonably priced and plenty good experience that you could get for a cheap and cheerful price and enjoy with your friends. So you can also get a deluxe edition if you want to for another, I believe, $9 added onto the price, so it'll be about $23, which is a bit more steep, but you do get the soundtrack and a couple of other things with it that help to ease the price a little bit, because the soundtrack is really quite good and it's definitely worth having. It's got, like I said, this sort of dark synth feel to it that fits the aesthetic quite well and is very well made. And I suppose if I wanted to sum up the game in a short description, that's it. It's very well made. It is a game that has a good amount of passion poured into it by developers that know what they're doing. It's not going to set the world on fire, but that's not an insult at all. It's simply the case that the game knows what it is, and knows what it wants to be, and it achieves that in fine style without necessarily going out of its way to be absolutely revolutionary. But you don't necessarily need to be absolutely revolutionary with every single game you play or every single game you make. It's plenty fine to be good enough to enjoy. And that's what NeuroVoider is. It's plenty good enough to enjoy. So I would recommend it. It is available right now on Steam. Check the link in the description below this video if you want to check it out. It is constantly getting more updates, and something that you should know, it will have console versions soon, and something that may take it from particularly interesting but not necessarily setting the world on fire to maybe having some even more interesting mechanics and content. It's going to have some free DLC soon. That is right, free DLC. Yes, I said free. And that could be something absolutely worth looking into. So keep an eye out for that, because soon enough, they are working hard on it, I am told. There is going to be an update of free, well, an injection of free content to the game. I'm not entirely sure what all it's going to entail, but check that out soon. So you may want to, if you're not sure about the game yet, if you're not sure if you want to purchase it yet, keep an eye out for that. An injection of free DLC could be exactly what this game needs to take it from pretty good to great. So that's NeuroVoider, everyone. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.